it was a question around, as an empath starts to clear her wounds or generational wounds that she's been carrying, um, you know, for an empath, usually, obviously, that what I associate with being an empath is somebody who feels the feelings of others. So, say we've had a clearing done, but then we're going out into the community or we're meeting with a friend and they have a feeling or a wounding that as an empath you're feeling and picking up on other people's emotions, right? So how does the empath then, what do they need to do from an energetic stance to kind of keep that out of their being or recognize, or is the work of doing a clearing, this is a long question, so hopefully
No,
we'll
no, no, go for
cover
it.
this, is the work of doing a clearing going to be beneficial if she's kind of going back out in the community and picking it back up again, is I suppose what I'm asking.
Yeah, and because one of the things that you said was, because I was saying, clearing it from the source, and you were saying, but doesn't it just keep coming back, right? And um we're human, and we're in a physical body, so we're an identity. We're always going to have that feeling of um separation, that feeling of um being disconnected, like it's part of our makeup. But so because we don't want to go into, and this is the spiritual bypassing you were talking about before, we don't want to go into that space of feeling like we have to be perfect and that none of it happens, right? That's the spiritual bypassing. Oh, everything's perfect and I'm okay, and we don't need to, like, I don't need to have any more work done on me because blah, 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 right? The thing is, and I've been doing this recoding for about, so just, 25 years as a healer. And then this recoding part and, the stuff that I've learned around structure and a whole heap of stuff I've put together has been the last 4 to 5 years, I reckon maybe 4 years. And what happens is, when you're an empath and you're feeling other people's feelings, and this is where I was going with that client, right? So she's just had this experience with her dad, had to spend the weekend there, and got really triggered because of some of the stuff that he was bringing up and feeling like the child again, and him overpowering and being nasty and all those things, right? And totally related, because I moved in with my mum to look after her. And of course, all the stuff that's unhealed, all the woundings, bubbles up to the surface, and you get triggered with all of those things that they say, right? The difference being is when you've cleared stuff from the source, those triggers are no longer in your body. And so it's like her dad was the key and she's got this lock, and basically he just comes and puts his key into the lock and unlocks all the trauma. But if there's no keyhole there anymore, he hasn't got anywhere to put that trauma and those power, those emotions that he's, and beliefs and all of those things. So when you when you've cleared the stuff, you've still got that. I mean, that's how I do my work, right? Like, I tune into someone, a client, and you're feeling their feelings so that you're being able to guide them and do all that stuff. So you're still feeling, but you're not feeling it where it's hooked into your own wounding, because your wounding's gone. So when for example, my mum, very much a narcissist, right? Has her own challenges, being wounded, blah, blah, blah. We could go into the history of her childhood. Um, she used to say something and I would just get bitten. I would get triggered. I'd feel upset. All the inadequacies of myself would come up. I would feel like I wasn't good enough and she didn't love me, and all of those things would come up, right? But since doing recoding and really diving into the relationship with her, she still says it. Like we went to the nursing home the other day. So I came down from far north Queensland, living in the rainforest where I had 250-year-old kauri pines in my backyard. And I had this beautiful mattress that I made up a bed on the veranda, on the back veranda, with a screen to stop mosquitoes. And of a nighttime, in summer, I would sleep out there and there'd be fireflies. It was like a fairy tale. It was beautiful. And I moved to Blacktown in Sydney to look after my mum. And not long ago, we went and visited her, Tim and we were having a chat. And I don't know what brought it up, but she turned to Tim. No, she said it to me first, I think. She said, well, it's not like you do anything for anyone else but yourself. And then she turned to Tim and she said, Elizabeth doesn't know how to Elizabeth doesn't know how to do anything for anyone else but herself, right? Now, it triggered Tim a bit. Like he said, that's not true. And I just laughed. And I said, yeah, that's why I moved down from far north Queensland, Mum, because I'm so goddamn selfish. But before, that would have triggered me. But because of all the traumas gone from my DNA, so it was, the trauma from generations of trauma, not just mine, from maybe past lives, from all the stuff that's not just mine. All of that's gone, and so it didn't affect me. So just to finish that, though, doesn't mean that two of the things that are my inadequacies, one is that I don't belong, and that really has every so often it peaks up a little bit. That's really gone a lot. And the other one that does come up every so often is that I'm incapable. Now, that incapable used to be like a wave. It would come and it'd crash down and I'd be like, oh, and I'd go into overwhelm, But now it's there, but it's sort of outside of my field and it's sort of like a swell. So it comes up, there that is again, and I can grab hold of it or I don't. But as I'm scaling up and building my business and moving into bigger and better things and exploring more and more of myself, different things are coming up. Do you get that? You've got yourself on mute, hun.
Thank you. My dog was barking. Yeah, so what I heard you say was the coding is going in and it's kind of recoding whatever the trigger is so that you are no longer even triggered by that thing. So, yeah. So where you said you had these triggers of you don't belong or incapable, where those things might have triggered you in the past, you're not
Big time.
becoming attached to the emotion of that, so to speak. And it's kind of just, like you said, like a bit of a swell. And you can choose whether to go into it or not, is what I'm hearing you say.
And not only that, not only did they trigger me, because that was my identity, because we're powerful beings, even our unconscious is powerful, I would create unconsciously scenarios to verify that. I can give you an example. It's actually in my palmistry. I remember way back when I was living up in far north Queensland, and I put together there's a folk festival up there, Tableland Folk Festival, and I asked them if we could do a healing space. And so I got like six healers together, and we had our own little mini festival in the festival, right?
Mhm.
And one of them was a palm reader. And I had something had been going on already. So I was starting to, it bubbles on the surface. And he said, "Do you want me to do your palm reading?" Right. So he's looking at my thing and he said, "Oh, it's actually your mission and purpose to feel like you belong, to connect to people, because you feel very separate and blah blah blah. As part of what you're here to do is to really feel connected." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's in my palms, right? Because all my life, like, I was the only girl in the family after three boys, and the one before me was a stillborn. Our family was the black sheep of the family, so mum wouldn't let us go anywhere near the rest of them. All the neighbors used to get together. We were smack bang in the middle of the neighbors, and all the neighbors used to get together except for my mum. So here I was in the middle, like, just everything, all the way through my life.
Mm.
I've been slightly on the outside. So here I am. He's told me this about the palm reading. And we all go from there to go over the road to get our bands to say that we're part of the thing. And as we walk together as a group, this car comes, and it was naturally the way it worked that all of them went one way and I had to go the other way. And when it happened, I got to the other side of the road, just started bawling. Like, I can't even cross the road with a group, like those things that we create. We actually create them for ourselves.
What was it that was,
To
what was it that was, you couldn't cross with the group of people?
Well, it showed that I didn't belong. I was separate. I was proving to my identity that I didn't belong with that group of people.
What was the thinking back then? Do you remember if there would have been a thought that was making you feel like that then?
Yeah, well, our identity gets developed, right? From um 0 all the way up to 7, but definitely 0 to 3. We're actually like hypnotized. We're like sponges. They say, little kids are like sponges, because our brainwave frequency is the same frequency as when you're being hypnotized. Kids are off in their own little world. It's because they are. They're in this little space, and they're just in their own little world, right? They're learning how to behave. And so in my life, I was born just after a stillborn. And so in those days, mum didn't even get to see Bradley. So he was whisked off. She never got to see him. And in those days, there was no healing like there is now. The
Mm.
healing was go and have another kid. So I'm here because he died.
Mm.
And so I'm 6 and 7 years younger than my other two brothers, who went through the trauma of all of that and blah, blah, blah. And my mum was completely traumatized. She was actually in a psych ward while she was pregnant with me. And so when I came into the world in those first formative years, my dad also got sick and ended up on a kidney machine. So you can imagine life was going on around me
Mm.
with everyone having their trauma. And apparently I was this bright little, like I'm this beaming light that came into the world, but everyone's in trauma response all around me. And so I didn't belong to the trauma from the very start. And it wasn't until I just said that, I'm like, oh, that actually is, I never thought of it like that. But I didn't belong to the trauma that everyone was having.
Mm.
And so you start identifying with things. You start going, you make assessments and assumptions about yourself. This is who I am compared to the rest of the world or my family or whatever. You start labeling yourself even from a young age. If I do this, I get good results and people love me. And if I do this, then I get punished and whatever. And so I think that was just part of the journey. It was, excuse me, for me, was to not belong. But so many, any third child generally don't feel like they feel insignificant or don't belong
Mm.
because there's too many to look after, right?
Mm.
So that becomes your identity. And in those years where the unconscious is forming and their patterns, like riding a bike, no one thinks of driving their car now or how to hold their pen when they're writing.
Mm.
It becomes a silent instruction. Just like I know to pick my pen up when I need to write,
Yeah.
when I need to do something, that part of me now would come up.
It's like an unconscious action, but
Yeah.
like how we learn to walk, we don't remind ourselves how to walk every day. And so
Yeah.
our thoughts and beliefs become unconscious in that way too. And we're just kind of automatically functioning from those original beliefs that we were around growing up
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
or
So
become
we all
accustomed
think,
to in, society or culture or whatever it might be.
mm, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because then here we are in our identity,
Mm.
making assumptions about who we are in the world and feeding that, like we're powerful, regardless of whether we're conscious or unconscious, we're powerful beings.
Mm.
Like I'm thinking of like I'm two things. My brother, he's, on the fence. He likes listening to me, or he every so often he'll jump in and say, you know, thinks he's spiritual in some regard. And years ago, when I think it was maybe 15 years ago or something, we had this conversation, and he called it the cosmic joker. So he had this thing that if he was racing to get to work, um, for whatever reason, or he needed to tie up his shoe or something like that, that he would get every no, if he was racing to work, he would get every red light. But if he needed to stop and tie up his shoe or something like that, he would get every green light. He also said, he had this foyer where the elevator was, and he said, if I press the button because I've got to get up there quickly and I'm waiting, it will take forever. But if I press the button and go and sit on the lounge in the foyer, it comes straight away.
Mm. I just let it
Now
go.
yeah. So that's a belief, right? So
Attached
he
to.
then creates this.
Yeah.
So, and then what happens is we start thinking our unconscious is our higher self
Mm.
because something comes up, an opportunity comes up or something like that, and you go, just doesn't feel right.
What do you mean? Can you explain that a bit more? Like the unconscious becomes our higher self. What do you mean?
Because we start thinking like what I was just saying. So
Because
an
the mind
opportunity.
wants to go into that, like, what does that mean? So, for people who are listening who are perhaps, you know, more in that space of being more from an intellectual space, what does that mean?
So just so you've got some opportunity come up, right? Just say you've got an opportunity to something that's sort of outside your realm of comfort. So, um, just say you've got this opportunity to go and talk in front of, 20 people or something. Or meet a new man or whatever it might be, right?
Mm.
Our unconscious will come in and go, it just doesn't feel right. My gut's saying that we shouldn't do it.
Mm.
I'm getting this intuitive nudge, right? But actually, is the identity that's saying you're not good enough, right? Because there's what I call 6 sabotage beliefs, right? Not good enough, not worthy, imperfect, insignificant, don't belong, and incapable.
Okay.
And all of them mean I feel unsafe.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy. And so if you're getting an opportunity, something coming up that your higher self is, because your higher self doesn't really talk, like it's just this gentle breeze sort of thing, right?
Okay.
And so you might get an opportunity come in your field, right? Oh, I'm getting this nudge to go and talk to such and such or whatever it might be.
Mm.
And they give you an offer, right?
So the higher
Your
self will
highest,
give you the nudge,
yeah,
but it doesn't
but
talk.
then but then the nudge, then the person gives the offer and you go into this, I might just think about that, or, I actually, it doesn't feel right. And it doesn't feel right because the unconscious knows that if you do that offer, you're going to experience yourself being worthy or good enough or belonging or whatever the identity is that doesn't match up with the fact that you don't feel good enough.
Mm.
And so it will do everything in its power to not feel to come back to this, because this is all it knows. It doesn't like the unknown.
Mm.
I did a talk up in Queensland. I went and did a road trip up there, and I came and did a free event up there. And a lady came in and she was coming with her daughter, and I knew them. Her daughter had just got in with the wrong crowd. Beautiful, beautiful woman. Got in with the wrong crowd and ended up in jail. And only a month before, she had got out of jail and was trying to clean herself up and blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And so this woman said, oh, I'm looking forward to this talk, and I've got, Willow's coming, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she comes to me just before the talk and she said, Willow can't get it. Something's gone wrong with the babysitter, and she can't get here. She's trying to get another babysitter. So comes to me just about to jump on, and she said, oh, she's found another babysitter. She's on her way. I'm like, awesome. Finish the event, do my presentation. No Willow. I went up and I said to her, what happened to Willow? And she said, you wouldn't believe it. And I just smiled. She said, you wouldn't believe it. She said, oh, she was halfway here and a car broke down. We are powerful beings. Her car broke down. Her babysitter didn't turn up. All the things that could possibly go wrong, so that she couldn't even get to hear how powerful she is and that she's a creator. So she missed out on hearing it.
Mm.
People will go, oh, it's meant to be. From what side? From your unconscious or from your higher self that's guiding you to bigger and better things?
Yeah, so that's where it can become quite confusing, I think, kind of on that journey. Because you was talking about then, obviously, the unconscious self and the higher self, and you gave a really good example around that, as in that, the unconscious is this feeling that it might not feel quite right. And the higher self is this part of you that doesn't talk, but you'll have this kind of knowing or this nudge that this is the direction that you're going in. And then I just wanted to ask as well around that before we just go into what you was talking about then, but is there also this middle person that is like of a conscious self that just kind of narrates for both of those? Because I
Yeah.
think that's a really important, for me, there is.
Yes.
That I want to just, for people who, if they do listen, it's like, well, yeah, what's your take on that?
Because there's three levels of consciousness, right? There's the unconscious that doesn't want to change.
Yeah.
And then there's the conscious that does want to change. So the conscious is the part of us that wants to keep moving forward and growing and have self-expression and makes those assessments and judgments, right? We all do it, right? We make it. Do we want an lemon ice cream or a orange ice cream? Like we make a judgment, we make an assessment, right? And so that's our consciousness. Our consciousness is the part that's wanting to move forward and grow. Our higher self, I actually call that the superconscious. So
Mhm.
that part actually doesn't care whether you change or not, as long as you're having an experience. And that's why recoding works, because we can go to the superconscious and go, hey, see all the stuff that's getting in the way. So the conscious wants to go this way. The conscious wants to have a beautiful relationship. The conscious wants to have an amazing, successful business, or be amazing mum, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The unconscious is holding us back. So this is how I explain it to people, right? Because here's the conscious wanting to go this way,
Yeah.
and the unconscious is pulling us back this way,
Mm.
because the unconscious is saying, but you're not good enough. And the conscious goes, but I really want it.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want this,
And we
right?
often feel this bit pulling us back more than this bit that's pulling forward,
Always
don't we?
forward.
Yeah.
So to really step out of that is to follow the conscious. And this is where any sort of mindset work works, like NLP, hypnosis, like tapping, all of those things. It works with the conscious and the unconscious. So it just takes a long time, because you've got the conscious going this way, the unconscious going this way. And so there's this pull and push. And so those modalities need the conscious to be stronger in its pull than
Yes.
the unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Whereas when you go to the superconscious, that's where all the codes came from. That's where all of the information in the unconscious came from. Past lives, generational history, could have been five lineages of women that were cheated by their men, and now she feels unsafe and she's not sure why. And she can't find a man that's going to make her feel loved and supported and connected. And
Mm.
so the superconscious, you can clear all those codes, so that because ultimately what the role or the goal is to get your conscious, your unconscious, and your superconscious all in a line.
Mm-hmm.
That is pure creativity.
Yeah, because the way that I see it, the unconscious is the little girl or the little boy inside of us who's got all these feelings and emotions, and it's part of us, right? And we don't want to discard that. It's like, actually, we want to nurture it and make it feel like it is heard and seen and understood and loved. But then we've also got this conscious self that's kind of more of a adult kind of state, who is going, hang on, like, we need to do this, this, and this to make sure we're going forward, or, we've got to go to work, so we've got to get the money and pay the bills. We can't just sit in a slump all day and stay in bed like the inner child might sometimes want to do.
Yeah.
And you've also then got this, you need both of those, because if we discard the little child, we're discarding our feelings and emotions. If we discard the adult, then who's in charge kind of thing. And then we've got this super conscious, is what you referred to, the higher self, or either or, is this dimension that allows us to, I don't know, you talk about how those kind of integrate in then to the superconscious.
the superconscious is like the quantum field. And so to really integrate them so that there's that alignment, because let me back up a bit. If you're just working with your conscious, the adult,
Yeah.
and the unconscious being the inner child, for example, the adult is unconsciously trying to pacify the inner child. So you can be going for things in your life like I want a loving, supportive, connected relationship, but really it's because in your childhood and the unconscious didn't feel loved. I want to make lots of money, but really it's because the inner child grew up poor. So it's just the other side of the coin, right? It's still power and powerless. Like it's this game, and it's not really a true choice. Whereas when you're connected, so if you're just down here and you're working with the mind all the time, and you know, trying to heal the heart.
It's a battle, isn't it? This is where
Oh
it can get a
man.
bit confused. This is why we were saying like how, because it can get really confusing. So it's like, well, so what you're saying then is that the child and the adult are kind of both in the head, but the superconscious is grounded in the body and
It's
in,
in the heart. Yeah.
is that what you would?
Yeah. And the superconscious has got a different agenda most of the time. So the superconscious, you know, when you just know something, you just know, you know, like you just like, I don't know why I feel this, but I feel this, you know, like, so as I said, I grew up with a dad that was on a kidney machine. And so I grew up saying I was going to be a nurse. So I was going to look after my dad. And then he died on me at 15. That was the start of my spiritual awakening, because I actually used to lay with him when he was on the machine, because he was on the machine for, I can't remember how many hours, but a long time, generally overnight. I want to say 4, but I think it was more like 8 or something. But anyway, I used to lay there and cry, I don't want you to die. And he'd go, I'm not going to die, blah, blah, you know. So anyway, 15 years old, and he'd got a kidney and then it didn't work. So they had to take it out, and he just got back, and he was asleep when I went to school. So I didn't say goodbye. And, you know, I think it was the second or the third, I think it was the second period at school. And the career guidance officer or whatever came in, spoke to the teacher. I start packing up. Like I just knew she was there for me. And so she said, oh, we're packing up. Oh, good. You know, come with me. And as we walked out, she turned around to me outside the thing, and I looked at her and I said, he's dead, isn't he? And she was shocked. I just knew. That took me on, and I had this thing. He was in a library somewhere. Like I didn't know anything about spirituality or healing or any of that sort of stuff. I just had this feeling he was in a library. Like, is there a library in heaven? My auntie was a Christian, you know. And I just had this feeling that he was in a library. Now that took me on a bender for 10 years. I was grieving for 10 years of my dad, because he was the only one that really loved me all my life, like at that stage. And so I went to discover where's the library, what's this all about? Is there a God? You know, like all of those things. And you know, I end up finding out that I'm a healer. Oh, I can put my hands on someone, I can feel their cells moving, and blah, 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 blah. all of those things were a guidance from my higher self, because my conscious didn't know anything about spirituality. I grew up, I mean, I had weird experiences, like, and so my conscious had no concept of that. My unconscious definitely didn't. But there was this gentle, follow me this way. So even when my dad was alive and I was saying I was going to be a nurse, that was me trying to interpret what was to come in my life. I didn't know it at the time though, right?
So how does somebody, Elizabeth, like that subtle, that gentle, follow me this way, how does someone distinguish that from the unconscious?
This is the tricky thing, right? Because the first thing I would say is to meditate. Set the intention to build a relationship with your higher self, right? Intention's really powerful. And so meditation is a really good practice. There's a whole heap of tools out there, like automatic writing, spirit guide meditation, all of those things. And they're really good and they're really effective if you can be still enough to hear. And if you still have all of this story going on from that little girl, the inner child in your unconscious that is constantly talking, that mind chatter, then it's hard to hear. So all of that stuff is being able to clear that stuff and wash it away. It's sort of like washing, as I said, washing the mud off your wings so that you can work out, you can actually flap these, and so you can do it the hard way and just really be determined and focus, or you can do some sort of clearing process. And this is where I find, I'll put my hand up. I definitely was part of 25 years as a healer now, and I was definitely part of the community of healing and looking at what's in my shadows. Like I did 7 years of past life regression training in a little community, and then was facilitator of it and morphed that into multidimensional healing. And so those things, I was constantly looking, what is there to fix? What is there to fix? What is there to fix? What's coming up now? But then we get caught in what you're saying before about, isn't there always something to fix? Well, yeah, there's always something to fix because, one, there's so much. It's not just us. It's genetics. It's 5, 7, 10 years of generations prior to us that got burnt at the stake, for example. There's all of that. But also what happens is, if you start believing that you need to fix yourself, then you've now created a pattern in your unconscious that you need to fix yourself, that you're broken. And so every time you get to a place where, it feels like I'm doing really well and life's a breeze, again, now your identity is, but I'm broken, I need to fix myself. So the unconscious will find something else to come on top to fix you. So now you're in this cycle of having to fix yourself and feeling broken.
It kind of glosses over it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's still underneath there.
Mm.
It's still underneath. It's not being resolved.
Well, new pain will come up. New pain will come up, What we need to do is to focus on what we want to create, not what is our wounding. So that's focusing forward on the things that you do want to create focusing forward on what you're here for, you know, your true nature and purpose, for example, you know, living the life you love. And, you know, you know my story with all the things that have happened to me since I've learnt how to create instead of fix myself.
Mm. Mm.
So seeing we're going to put this out because, you know, we started off with just having to talk, but I will just share for anyone that's listening, I'm living proof how this can work because I've learnt this recoding 4 years ago. And first thing that happened was multiple six figures in my business. And little things, you know, I'm just giving you three of the big things. So multiple six figures in my business. Then I had a 4.5 centimeter brain tumor. Found out I had a 4.5 centimeter brain tumor, right? Most people would go, oh, as a healer, you know, like, that's not good. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not perfect. I'm a human being. I'm like, it's apparently 1 in 10 people get them. It wasn't
Wow.
it was benign. So it was in the back of my head here, getting headaches, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 4.5 centimeter brain tumor. And I could tell you the story. It would take too long, but oh my gosh, what a journey that was. It was so beautiful. Like the moment I decided, because I'd had pain for a long time before I decided, I'm not someone that goes to the doctor. I don't have my designated doctor. So I went, okay, I need to, you know, I was just having headaches, but I had two times where I was like, oh, a little bit, you know, got dizzy or something. And so decided I'd go to the doctor. So I look up the Google, look to find the closest doctor, just happened to find, so this is just on the outskirts of COVID, by the way. Just happened to find a doctor that had done 3 years in neurosurgery prior to being a GP, right? Just happened. Just happened to get in the same day, right? In those days, it was unheard of. Told him what was going on. He looked in my eyes and he goes, oh, yeah, you need to go and get a CT scan. Went the next day to a CT scan. That's a Friday. They ring me up. They say, take the scans. We need you in hospital straight away. Go to emergency. He tells me, pack your bags. You won't find a neurosurgeon on emergency on a Friday afternoon. Who turns up? A neurosurgeon. He looks at me, does all the tests, and he goes, how does someone like that, someone like you, get a piece of fruit? Because it was the size of a plum, big plum. How does someone like you get a piece of fruit in your head? He said, you should be showing balance, coordination, blackouts and seizures. And you just got headaches. What's going on? Let me go home for the weekend. Went back in on Monday. My business mentor at the time tells me I've just started my Conscious Creator course. I've got 20 women ready to jump in January. This is just after Christmas. My mentor says to me, you really need to have 2 or 3 months off. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'd been using a direct debit system with my clients and I didn't like the software. It was playing up, hard to do. Someone had told me about Stripe. And I said, oh, I'm going to use Stripe because they send me emails every so often, but I never open them because I'm not using it. I go in, forget all my chemical-free stuff, walk in, someone's left some chemical-free stuff in the shower, right? Laying on the bed, and I get a notification from Stripe that I need to verify myself. And I'm going to use that when I get out. I'll, get my license out, put it on the bed, took a photo, started scrolling again. I get this email from Stripe saying, now you've verified yourself, we need to pay you out. I'd had women paying me through Stripe for 12 months. And because it was verifying or reconciling in my accounting software, I didn't know that it wasn't linked to my bank account. So I'm sitting in my bed, just being told I can't have 2 months off. I've got to have 2 months off. And I get $12,990 put into my account.
Wow.
The last nurse I saw on the ward, her name was Angel. The first one I opened my eyes to, her name was Crystal. The surgeon said, she said, I just cut your head open. It popped out at me. She said, I got the whole thing. I didn't have to have any follow-up treatments. I opened my eyes. I had no pain. They kept on apologizing to me. They said, you've got to be in here in the trauma ward for 4 days afterwards. And we've never had this before where you're up and washing your hair by yourself and all that. Like I was just doing my own thing. All of it, even though I'd had this major experience, it was just this beautiful experience.
Mm.
And then I moved down to Shell Harbour. Go to the beach one day, no one else on the beach, I thought. And Tim Makepeace walks past. Here I am, a healer, and his last name is Makepeace. Like, I'm not special, but I've learned.
Your fiance.
Yeah, now he's my fiance. We live together we live at Shell Cove on the marina. I am not special. This is what it's like when you're in creation. When you've got your conscious, unconscious, and your superconscious all lined up, all of this magic happens. And it's just part of your life. We're way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for.
So, I guess I have another question. So, if there's women listening to this and they're feeling like a resistance to
Hearing how powerful they are.
Pardon?
Hearing how powerful they are.
Or to going, oh, like, that might not be for me. Or I can do it this way. Whatever might be coming up for them. Where would you say, how does that fit into everything we've just spoken about with the superconscious, with the unconscious, with the conscious? And, I want to add into that as well, if you can build this into your answer. Because my understanding of the unconscious is it's fear-based. There's a lot that's kind of fear-based. And when you was talking about, when you were a child and with your dad getting sick and becoming helping him and everything that you went through there, you then had this awakening moment. And for me, what I would say is the calling for, or the distinguish between the unconscious and the superconscious is the really quiet whispers that are kind of going, hey,
come this way.
there's something else.
Yeah.
There's something else. And the mind will, it's a kind of like a knowing that there's something else. And the mind has got this thing, well, there's got to be something else. No. Like, just what are you going on about? Okay, but there's this knowing that's starting to rise from inside that keeps coming, and it will keep coming back. And the more we ignore it, it comes back again. And we ignore it again, and it comes back again. So if you can build that into your answer around, if women are listening to this and they're thinking, oh, it sounds great, I want to be in my higher consciousness, my super conscious, but I'm feeling this resistance. Can you speak to that, Elizabeth?
To the resistance, generally the resistance is because we are so rooted in our identity. We're so like you think about it being like we're plugged into the matrix, right? That resistance, to tell you the truth, people that are really in resistance won't even watch this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're still
They're
watching,
watching. There's something that's intriguing them.
yes, if you're still watching this, then there's part of you, there's a higher part of you that has brought you here at this time, at this place to listen to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were getting on here to have a conversation. We actually went, oh, should we record this? And so our resistance is the unconscious that doesn't know, because what happens is we have a conscious thought, right? Oh, I might go learn a new language, or I might go on a date. Like I might go on a dating app. I might go on a dating app. And we see someone on that dating app and we go and we make an assessment, right? And so we see that person, and within seconds, our unconscious, because our unconscious is a computer program, right? It's like a storage unit. But that storage unit, even though it's big, when you like, if we're going to use a premise, right? Even though it's big, everything that's stored in there is information from us from the moment actually the unconscious starts developing in the last quarter of um the last quarter of gestation, right? So everything that we have been experiencing, every sound, thought, voice, TV image, radio, all of those things that we have experienced, and you can imagine that there's thousands, millions, billions of them, interactions that we've had in our own life, right? So there's all of those and the assessments that we've made about it. Then we've got all of the assessments that we've made from our parents and others talking to us and what we believe about the world, right? Then on top of that, we've got past lives, which who knows how many that is.
Mm.
Then we've got on top of that generations that are stored in our DNA. This is epigenetics, where they know that it's not just disease that we carry in our genetics, but emotional traumas that are getting stuck in our DNA as well. So we have got a huge supercomputer full of information in our unconscious, but it's still limited because it's only based on those things. So when you have a new opportunity, the first thing that happens is the unconscious jumps in to see and assess whether it's okay to do. Will we be safe? Will we survive? Because the unconscious, the whole thing about the unconscious is just, is it survivable? So it will make an assessment based on whether it's survivable or not. And if it's unknown to you, then you will most probably make the judgment, this is not survivable. It's too scary, it's unknown, and I will reject that guy on the dating app. Whereas the superconscious has every single code that there ever was. So it's not just the limitation
She
of.
might not reject him. Just coming before you go into
Yeah,
that.
go for it.
She might not reject, but she might go into it maybe on the premise that that person can keep her safe, or they
Yes.
can provide for her, which is a really
Yes.
unhealthy place for us to be
Yes.
going into a relationship from, which is a whole
Yes.
other conversation which I'd love to go into another time.
Yeah. Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So you're attaching to an outcome that's coming from an unhealthy place. You're a wounding. Yeah,
So she might
I
reject it
agree.
because she goes, "Whoa, I'm too scared," or she
Yeah,
might go into it going, "They can take care of me." So there's these
yeah.
the would you say it's like which I guess there's two states there. You've kind of got these two states of one that's kind of running away, and one that's kind of um, just kind of going in for something
Well,
from somebody
because
else.
it's connecting
Because,
to, it's matching up with the identity, and so yeah, it's coming from a place of this will support me to survive.
mm, yeah, but it's coming from a very unhealthy place, really. So probably the healthier place in that scenario is to kind of reject
Yeah,
altogether and
yeah.
go, oh, but but then then we're also closing ourselves off from the things that our soul really wants, which might be to have a loving relationship. So it's I think where you're going to now is going to kind of speak to the next bit.
Well, that's the thing because, but yeah, so if you're triggered, then any sort of trigger is coming from the unconscious.
Mm,
Um, Generally, if you're listening to this and you're triggered, I would be saying, what's the trigger? Like what's coming up for you?
mm,
Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in the body? This is just a little assessment for people. Where am I feeling it in my body?
mm,
If it was a color, what color would it be? Just to give it, this is to bring self-awareness in.
mm,
What memory pops? Because been another time when you felt this before, and you'll have a memory that'll pop up that is the association. I felt unsafe this time, and I'm feeling unsafe safe now.
mm,
Something's coming up for me. I feel unsafe. It's
mm,
in my shoulder. It's yellow. And actually the memory that comes up is when I was 3 years old and something happened and blah, blah, blah. And so you can see where the mind has associated, and this is I'm spiritual, but I love the science around this, very
mm,
grounded in the evidence-based information. And so what happens is the neural pathways in the mind wire and fire together. So when you're in a similar situation, so didn't feel safe at 3 years old, not feeling safe now. So those same neural pathways are wired together. You're getting the same emotional response, which is just a chemical reaction in your body happening in your system. And your system feels the need, because the unconscious wants to keep you safe, pull back. This is not for me. I'll get distracted. Maybe I need to go to the toilet right now. Off I go, right?
mm.
So the body can even make it so that you need to duck to the loo or whatever, and you miss the best part, or the part that your higher self is needing. And what's really something that you said before about that nudge is, if you don't listen and part of your path, that nudge from the higher self starts getting louder and louder and louder. And then all of a sudden you get smacked over the head. I just worked with a guy that today, I don't work with many men, but I've got a male client at the moment. He's in Michigan, and this is only the second session I've had with him. And I'm like, man, I wish you'd come earlier. because he's got 10 days before he goes to his second court hearing where him and his um daughter, who's trans, autistic, low functioning autistic, will be on the streets because they're losing their apartment. And I said to him, there's two things here. Either you got a nudge way back that you didn't listen to, because he's quite tuned in. There was a nudge a little while ago, if not 6 months ago, at least 90 days ago, to give you an indication that you should have done something and you didn't do it and you didn't follow it. Apparently it's been happening for 2 years because he didn't know that what the nudge is, which makes sense because it's a pretty big catalyst at the moment. Or you're choosing a creation that means that your whole world needs to break down, and this is part of the process, which I don't think that's the case. And he said, yeah, I don't either. It's that I didn't listen. And so here I am. It's very interesting. It's a difficult, he got off the call in a better place, which is good. But I would have liked to have worked with him a little bit before this, it's going to be an interesting process watching him hold the vision and get himself out of this. But first thing I said to him was, let's just acknowledge that you're here and you're still alive and it's okay.
Or divine timing, right? It's
Yeah.
like maybe this is exactly what was supposed to happen because there's a lesson in that. It's in and of itself, in a way. And sometimes people do their most, intelligent life's work, purpose work, when they're right at the bottom, when they've literally got
Absolutely. Yeah.
And on there.
But wouldn't it be great not to have to do that? So many people wait until that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great if that wasn't the situation. Yeah. So if they're feeling that nudge, if they're feeling a sense of, oh, I'm interested, I'm still here, I'm still listening, but there's something in me that's kind of going, maybe, maybe not. Like, how can they push themselves over the line?
No one can do that for them but themselves. Everyone, that's one of the first things you need to know, is that you've got absolute power and you're self-sovereign.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know that you're a powerful being and you get to make choices however you want to make choices.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I teach people when we're dealing with relationships, is to let people stay in their wounding and suffering if that's where they want to be, total respect for everyone to make the choices that they want to make. How do they it doesn't take time, it takes intention. And so how do they make that call? They just make the decision.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, for me, what's coming up for me is really just going, it's an acknowledgement. It's a deep acknowledgement of that nudge that's there, that's pulling you here, and actually saying yes to it. Actually saying yes to it. And you're going to get all these thoughts of, what about money? What about time? What about everything else? But actually, there's something there that wants, that it's got to be that acknowledgement. It's not even about, half the time it's not even about the money, or something could be for free, but it's actually an acknowledgement that actually there's this thing inside of you that is wanting to come forth. And it's actually us going, I am going to say yes to this part of me to come and be explored and allow it.
Yeah, we have so much more to experience. We are, I'm not a Christian, but I have a very strong affinity with Jesus. And because I'm not a Christian, I actually read the Bible cover to cover like a book, just to check it out, because I realized this is a while ago, I was judging a book that I hadn't read. And in the book, Jesus says, "You will do great works as I, and even more." And he was healing the blind, right?
Mm.
That book is full, absolutely full of quantum physics, law of attraction, spiritual. I mean, everything that we talk about is in, if you've got eyes to see and ears to hear, that book is full of it. And we have so much power. We just need to tap into it. And it's not hard either. I've got a lady in my course at the moment. You know her, Bev, from our networking community. She is not spiritual. She's not uh well, she might be reserved underneath, but it's not something that, like she's out there being anything. She's just being a normal person, right? She's a conveyancer. She's in my course, heard the information's done some recoding, cleared some stuff out of the way, and had the realization that actually what she wants to do is she wants to create a client a day. When she got 10, she's needed to back off. And she had some personal stuff come up. Someone in the family died and blah, blah, blah. She moved house, I think. It backed off. And then when she was ready, bang. I went to the networking yesterday. We sat down for lunch, and as she sat down, she said, "I've already got my client for today." She's getting a client a day.
Wow.
She has just gone into it, and because she's got a beginner's mindset, right? She's not getting in her own way. She heard the concept, understood the process, and just started doing it. And bang, it's worked.
Mm. So what was the process?
So alchemy is 5 steps. First, you've got to know what it is that you want to create.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to, be a true choice. Then you've got to become it now. You've got to experience it in your body, because there is only the now moment. So, go into meditation, feel what it feels like to have that result.
Mm.
Look at what's in your current reality. So we're creating a structure. This is my current reality. So not going into the past and digging up all the psychological crap and all of that sort of stuff, but what's going on right now that's causing any resistance. Then that's step 3. Step 4 is clearing that resistance by some sort of change history process, like recoding or clearing all the stuff that's getting in the way. I do quite a few different techniques in my course. It's not just recoding.
Mm.
And then 5th, which is really important, is take the obvious next step.
Mm.
So that whole process, you're actually connecting into your higher self, to your superconscious. So that 5th step is inspired action.
Mm.
So you've cleared the stuff out of the way, and what is it that you need to do just today? 1 step.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients has just, I know I'm full of stories, but it seriously,
Well, we
it
need
works.
examples.
Yeah, one of my clients works in a library, lives in Melbourne. One of the things that creators know is to not think about how to do it, just to stay in that desired end result. And so she's been going, I want to go to Cornwall. She's from the UK. She's wants to go to Cornwall in May. She's been holding that. All these things coming up as obstacles, and she's clearing it out of the way and holding this desired end result. She even had someone else question her that's in the course. What are you doing? Because she can't, I've got a higher ascension thing that she's just come into. What are you doing spending more money? You shouldn't be doing that. I thought you really wanted to go to Cornwall. It's like, I do, and I'm doing this. Holding that end result. And she just messaged me. So like she was even prepared to go on Monday with her bags packed. She did the holiday from the work. So she got the time off work. She put in her tax return and it hasn't come through. She was even prepared to go and pack her bags and turn up to the airport, not knowing how it's going to happen. Because, and that's the thing, you've got to hold that end result and show your unconscious that you're serious about this. She messaged me last night and she said, I'm going on Monday. She didn't tell me how she got the money, but she told me she went in, the flights were cheap. Something came up and she couldn't get it then. She didn't have the money or something. Then she looked again and they were $500 more. And she's like, don't know if I can do that. And then I think she got onto a travel agent she knows or whatever, and they were able to get her the discount that she saw at the very start. Which is ridiculous because like she's going on Monday, right? So usually the flights go up, not down at this stage. So yeah, she's going on Monday. Like so good. Like that, like I'm just like, right. See, the 11th hour, that's when people start freaking out. They start reverting and listening to the unconscious as saying, it's not working. Look, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Or like, something that often comes up for me with these things, and maybe for other people as well, is, we've invested time and energy into so many different modalities and money as well. And so how, how is it different? Like how, can they, know that this is going to be different and they're going to get results with this?
No one gets results unless you put the effort in to start with. You've got to, I can't get results for you.
Yeah.
Just premise that, preface that. You've got to put, if you're going to invest in yourself, you're going to put the effort in and put the results in. How do you know if you're going to get the results? There's a couple of things. One, you don't know if you're going to get the results. You've just got to put the effort in yourself, right? I know that this works. I've been doing this for 4 years and I've told you a few of my clients and myself, right? My results and my clients' results, not including, oh my gosh, I could just tell you story after story after story of people, just crazy stuff going on, like the reason why this is different is because why I believe. So this is new stuff. So alchemy is not new. Alchemy is a very ancient technique that the alchemists use, turning lead into gold, right? It's based on turning the known, turning the, making the, oh, alchemists say it's making the I can't think of it. My brain's gone blank. But it's making the things that we know, turning that into like neutral, and turning us into the alchemist, right? The wizard, the magician, right? Unplugging from the system. So alchemy is not new. And that's the steps that I just shared with you. That's alchemy. So law of attraction and all of those things, they give you a half truth. They don't put the whole sequence in together. And that's what's been happening. All of these things, the modalities that you've been doing before, law of attraction, all like law of attraction in particular, doesn't give you all the steps that you see out there. But then hypnosis, NLP, tapping, all of these things are working with conscious and unconscious, and they're working with us being broken, and they're trying to fix us. And so that's why it's just this never ending, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars trying to work myself into a cesspit of more and more pain, because more and more pain keeps coming up. Where we are in consciousness at the moment, was I saying this before? I don't know if we actually recorded it, but I was working with my clients this morning, my group call, and we were talking about how each generation that comes in to break that shell a bit more. And this is the first generation that really are coming in saying, we don't need to survive. So we're in this space of we've got this opportunity to create, because every generation before us didn't know we could create. We were in survival mode all the way through. So now we've got new information coming through. So the ability to connect into superconscious, and in my course, I teach you how to do that. Like it's not so that you're reliant on me. It's so that you are connecting to your higher self and you become your magician, right? Your goddess, your whatever you want to call it. So the ability to access that realm is really powerful. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a classic example, right? He's got all of this information, just that recoding is a quicker, faster, like it's a cherry on top of all the stuff that I've seen anywhere else. I mean, I've been doing this for a while. I did 7 years of past life regression and I got results, but it took me 7 years. I got results in 3 years in this. Like, it just collapses time when you know all the steps and you can clear the stuff out of the way and keep moving forward. It's just like, it's hyper speed without the overwhelm. It's really freaking cool.
It sounds amazing. And I just wondered, something that came up was, is there an example of how it might work within if someone wants to sign up and move forward? Like, is there an example of how they might be able to clear something?
Give an example of what they might want to clear.
Yeah, just so I know, just to start wrapping it up, we'll kind of end on this point. But is there something that, and it might not be now, it might be something that in the future that you might be able to give them or share with them, but for them to know what, I know you explained there's 5 steps and the alchemy of that, and so an example of, say they've got a block about, say they want to say yes, but they've got this block that's kind of scared. They're scared of the unknown, right? Have you got an example around the recoding for somebody who might be feeling a bit scared? Like, is that how it would work? Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, neutralize it. All of a sudden it's just not there anymore.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, triggers just go.
Okay.
Um, I mean, I'm an example of that. I remember when I recoded going on dates. Um, like you've seen me, like I'm not beautiful figure model. Like my body was designed to give birth. So I've got big hips and legs and voluptuous body. And that triggered me because I remember a teacher at school saying to me once, everyone was laughing in the class, and he said in front of everyone, um, I don't know why you're laughing, Elizabeth. The chair that you're sitting on has got better legs than you have. Like, had no relevance to what the even it was about. Like, 30-year-old punk teacher, and here I was, like just started high school,
Mm.
major trigger. Like I didn't show my legs for ages, like years and years, decades. So going on a date was a big deal, and I'd been in two narcissistic relationships prior to going on that, but I knew I had this deep feeling, 50 years old, I'm sure that there's a man out there for me.
Mm.
So that inner knowing, right? And I remember recoding going on dates, and I had a date from a dating app, and I was still up in Sydney, and I specifically remember because Mum used to have we had to sell a house, but Mum's got the floor to ceiling mirror in her lounge room in a hall. And I remember looking in the mirror at what I was wearing and going, why am I not feeling anxious about this? Like, I'm like, I'm a big girl. I didn't feel uncomfortable before it used to be, oh, will this be the right clothing? I don't know where we're going, blah, 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 blah. Like who's going to pay all of that stuff? And I was just there dressed up, knowing I was going out with someone that I didn't know, and I was going to have a good time. And my consciousness was going, how come this is happening like this? I didn't understand where the triggers had gone. I even was having trouble parking, and really bad thing to do when you think about it. But he messaged me and I said, oh, I'm running a bit late because I can't find a park. And he said, oh, all good. Do you want me to get you a drink? And I said, yeah, sure. You just choose whatever wine, Now I think back, well, that's a really bad thing to do on a first date, right? But I just had no, there was no issues. We laughed and carried on the whole time. We actually were there until the end of the restaurant, they closed. And then I drove him to the train station. Ended up not being interested in him. And that was another thing. I didn't feel like I needed to be interested in him. I used to want to please. I just went, oh, this was a great time, but I'm not really interested. Thanks. It was so bizarre the first time I went on that date, like doing that. That's a great example of it.
So it sounds like there's just this whole kind of dropping of whatever the feeling is around the thing that they're
Mm.
thinking about doing or wanting to move forward in, and something just kind of drops away where it's not even, is it
It's
there,
like
but it's just kind of,
it neutralizes it.
okay.
Mm.
So neutralizes as in they're calm, they can see it, but they're just kind of back from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I want you to know, I'm not saying it's a magic cure either. because that's the smoke and mirrors that a lot of people put out there. You know, oh look, I'm going to cure you of cancer. You know, like it's definitely not that. Like you got to put the work in, and if you're someone that's got a lot of stuff, it might take a little while because there's layers and layers, right? I've been working on myself for 25 years. So, and yet, as I said, I mean, look at Bev, right? Client after client after client that are getting the same results as me. And so it isn't a fix all. It isn't a magic spell or a magic potion. It's science-based, quantum physics, epigenetics, neuroplasticity. It's ancient wisdom based, so it's alchemy. You know, spirituality, the way I bring it in has got that spiritual element. But you've got to be open to it and want to change. Want it's not about changing actually, because you do change, but it's more that you want to really truly experience yourself at the highest capacity that you came here to experience. It's really truly wanting to raise your vibration, to be here, to live at your highest capacity, your true nature, your true purpose, your impact, all of those things. It's the people that want to get to the end of their life and go, man, that was a great ride.
It sounds like it's kind of, change often to the mind sounds super scary because the mind will kind of want to go, oh, that means I'm going to be showing up somebody different. And it's like, I'm not comfortable with that. But what I understand from what you're saying and from my own journey is that actually when we choose to grow, change is part of that process. And it's not saying I'm not going to be that person that I wasn't, that you're still bringing in those aspects of that person, how we spoke before about the child and the adult, but we're bringing that all together into this growth or into the super conscious, the higher conscious, so to speak, or into our warrior adult self that can connect with, another dimension, so to speak. So, yeah, I think it's just important to share that it's, change and growth, they sound very different, but when we say it, in that way, they kind of the same kind of thing when you're on that
Well, it's
change.
like it's yeah, absolutely. And it's like a side effect, isn't it? It's a side effect of your growth is that you change. But that doesn't mean that, you become someone that you don't know.
Yeah,
Your essence is always the same.
yeah. You just start
Mm.
to see things that you're no longer comfortable with how you've been in the world, and you actually want to grow and move through that and become more or better at something, or you know have a purpose driven career, or have a different kind of relationship because you think the relationships, how you've shown up in relationships in the past, haven't quite worked. So it's like looking at it and going, okay, well, seeing it from a different perspective, seeing what role you've played in that relationship before, or whatever area it might be that somebody wants to work on, and then going, all right, so how do I want to show up this time in a relationship or whatever it might be, and taking those next steps towards the growth journey. So
Mm.
thank you,
It's
Elizabeth.
it's an it's an interesting it's an interesting topic, isn't it? I love talking about it.
Yeah, and we could go on all day as we already have. So, but yeah, so I'd love to see how this goes with everyone, and whether we break it up into pieces or do one big segment on it or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll leave
And,
that.
you know, of course, if anyone wants to know more, they can reach out. I'm on all social media platforms and all that sort of stuff as well. So sounds good.
Excellent. So on your web, is it Elizabeth Eleanor? Or is
Yes, elizabetheleanor.com.au. And Eleanor is spelled Elenor, so it's a little bit different.
Mm.
I'm in an explosion of creation myself at the moment. So I've just got some new branding come through. So I'm just about to birth a new, very exciting, very fun part of my business. So my website doesn't look the best right this second. But when you look at it in a little while, it's gonna blow your brains out.
Wow.
Yeah, so at the moment it's I've got to where I'm at with really not spending much time at all on my just one of my team sort of puts stuff together, you know, like without much effort or time. But we're just about to change all that. So watch this space.
Awesome. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. And take care, everyone watching. And thank you if you've listened all the way through this, right? Like if you've watched all the way through this, and I would say to you, then be aware that your higher self is saying something. You know, your higher self has got you this far. And this is one of many nudges that has been given you, I would say. So if you've watched all the way through this, then give yourself a pat on the back and thank you for being on the journey with us. And looking forward to seeing you grow and expand and do all the wonderful things.
Mm. Thank you.